Welcome to MACFEST. It's always such a pleasure to welcome Keitra and her team to the library. We always have wonderful events here, so it's always a lovely thing to have. So today we have our talk about illuminating knowledge, exploring Arabic scientific manuscripts, and we've got some speakers. So we have got Kamran, who is a lecturer in Islamic thought from the University of Manchester, so part of our family. And we've got Jofi Buda, who's the Global Manuscripts Curator here at the library. And joining us from Berlin is Razia, who is just in the corner of the screen. So it's a great pleasure to have her with us today. And I've got a wonderful biography, so I'm just going to read you a bit of background to Razia's studies. So Razia is a historian of science specialising in the history of astronomy in the Islamic world. She received her PhD from the Humboldt University of Berlin. She is currently a postdoctoral researcher in the ERC Synergy Project Mosaic at Erlangen Nuremberg University. Excuse my English skills. She also serves as the elected councillor of the Commission on the History of Science and Technology in Islamic Societies and is a visiting postdoctoral fellow at the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science in Berlin. Her forthcoming book, Al-Bahrani, apologies for the pronunciation, Elements of Astronomy, Content and Form of Play to Open New Doors to Knowledge, explores the interplay of textual content and material form in the transmission of astronomical knowledge. So we're really happy that Razia is with us today. Just a few other boring things. If there's a fire alarm, we will treat that as a real alarm, so we will get you out of the building safely. If anybody needs the bathrooms, they're in the basement. You can take the lift or the stairs just in the atrium. Our presentations will last around an hour. There will be opportunities to ask any questions if you would like at the end of the presentations. And then we will have our collection encounter, so you'll be able to actually see the manuscripts that we'll be discussing today. And we hope to finish around 3:45, 4 o'clock. So have a wonderful event. And I'm going to pass over to Keitra now. Thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone, and assalamu alaikum. Welcome to MACFEST 2026. Welcome to our John Rylands event. It's a very, very special event for us. It's one of our key events, and I'm so thankful, grateful to the marvelous team. We started off with Elizabeth, who's there, Dr. Elizabeth Gall, and Sophie and Gemma. They are marvelous. And of course, we've got a new team member as well, Cameron, who's going to do the presentation, and we've got someone from Germany. So it's a real treat. I love this library. Why? Because we've got thousands and thousands of manuscripts, including from the Islamic world. I did Islamic studies course decades ago, and this was the place where I came, and I found it treasure house of manuscripts. So when we set up the MACFEST 2018, John Rylands was #1 spot for us. During COVID, they actually did digital events for us, where they took us through so many different manuscripts, and then now they're offering the same treat in real life. So you have amazing time looking at real manuscripts as well as listening to the marvelous presentation. So thank you from me, and thank you to all of you. Many of you went to the Eric Bruff's presentation as well, and it's great that you enjoyed it. So please keep joining us. We still have some few events left in July. Inshallah, the program for 2027 will go live in 2026 in November. So,
and I worked in a collaborative way with Jofi Huda, General Henderson, to put together this event today. So I think what I want to do is this portion of our talk will provide the background, the framework, the context of the texts and manuscripts that we'll talk about later on with Jofi and with Razia. So what I want to do is to start with a very basic question: is why are we here? Okay. Now, this is not me going to launch into some sort of metaphysical, some sort of metaphysical exploration. It's really a sort of a concrete question. Okay. Why are we here? What brought us here today? What inspired us to come out in the rain, in some cool weather, to come here to the library? What is it that's valuable to us? What is about us that makes us want to see these things and engage with them? Now, the question can be rephrased in two ways, I think. Is that, why are we here? Who are we, all of us here? We are, clearly, a very diverse collection of people with many different histories, personal histories. Some of us are from not from the British Isles, some of us are. Some of us were born ancestors all the way back to this area for generations. And yet, we've still come here to see these manuscripts. And so there is something that, we're all very different, but there is something that unites us, that makes these manuscripts something that we value enough to come out and take the time to see. So the we, who we are, our personal narratives, is something that I want to explore a little bit in my brief comments. The other part of that question is the here. Why are we here in this building, in this city, which is in, this building, which is in this city, which is in this country, in England, okay? It is strange that we would come to examine or look at our salvations. We are here because you were there. Now, in his day, he was speaking to white British. And in his day, there was considerable tension between those communities. Now, he was being deliberately provocative with this statement. Okay? And I don't think that provocation is necessary, and it's not my intention. But what he was trying to say brings up an important point about why we are here and why we're here. We, what unites us, is that these texts traveled during the colonial era at the same time that peoples traveled during the colonial era. There was a parallel in the movement of texts and artifacts, cultural artifacts, particularly from India, but also from the Islamic world more generally, and people from those places, especially from India, but also and certainly afterwards. These texts were collected and brought to collected mainly in India, and then were brought to this library by some very wealthy British merchants, and especially the wife of a wealthy merchant, who spent immense amounts of money on bringing these texts to Manchester and to this library. And at the same time, many of our ancestors in India, perhaps, maybe in the Middle East, maybe in the Far East, maybe in Central Asia, our ancestors, were also coming at the very same time to this country because of the political involvement, the social involvement, the economic involvement of the British in the Middle East, in those regions, right? So there's a parallel, there's a mirror. Their heritage in the sense that there's this set of texts that Islam and the Greeks were very much important to, but it also spoke to the fact that they had come to wield political control over these people and indirectly over these texts as well. And so it had a political element as well to the collectors, the European collectors of these texts. Okay. So the idea is that, yes, what we have here are texts that, or manuscripts, that tell us, that leave the traces, the marks of the stories of the 19th century, of the colonial era, of the copyists, of the history of Islam, of the history of British colonialism. These are sort of, you find them just etched. The traces of them are there in the codices themselves. And so we'll try to uncover some of that history in the manuscripts that we have presented today. So the manuscripts tell stories about how they came there, but they also tell us stories about ourselves, potentially. And so that's something that we will want to explore. So in the coming minutes, we will be trying to understand several things. So what we want to take away from this is a few points, right? One is the, well, here we have John Rylands Library. It has lots and lots of Islamic scientific manuscripts. The John Rylands Library has lots of Islamic manuscripts, right? And which are a great deal more than just the scientific ones. Here we have a small selection.
And also how they arrived into the library. So as Cameron said, we have quite a large number of Islamic manuscripts here. We have over 2,000 items. They are arranged in language sequences, so we have approximately 900 Arabic manuscripts, over 1,000 Persian, nearly 200 Turkish. We also have some Urdu and some Pashto material. And they cover a wide range of topics, from religious texts, including manuscript copies of the Quran, works relating to history, law, science, philosophy, literature, and so on. Most of the scientific manuscripts were produced in the Indian subcontinent or in Egypt and are in the Arabic language. They cover disciplines such as medicine, alchemy, natural history, math, mechanics, astronomy, astrology. Here you can see some of the illustrated ones with diagrams. And now I get to the topic Kamran just raised, because you may wonder how these manuscripts ended up in a library in the middle of the 19th century. After his death in 1868, they were purchased by a wealthy English aristocrat, Alexander Lindsay, the 25th Earl of Crawford. And some 3 decades later, in 1901, Lindsay's son decided to sell the family library for financial reasons, and the buyer was Enriqueta Rylands, the founder of this library. So let me introduce you briefly to the main characters of this story. My main source about Colonel Hamilton, my main source of information regarding him was a yet unpublished article by Jake Benson and Christopher Ball. He was, as Benson and Ball put it, a patron and enthusiast of Indo-Islamic learning. He learned Persian and Arabic even before he traveled to India. Then he learned some of the local languages there. He commissioned translations of Arabic scientific works into Urdu. I don't quite understand this bit yet, so I will talk to Dr. Benson and ask how this came about. The composition of at least two local histories by local historians. So he wanted to understand the people he was kind of managing there as an East India Company officer. And he also founded the Delhi Literary Society. So he was a typical East India Company soldier scholar. He was a soldier, but he was also very intellectually curious. While in India, he fulfilled different positions in the service of the East India Company, and eventually he became the Commissioner of Delhi. He also maintained an extensive network of booksellers, scholars, and local scribes. Via this network, he bought or commissioned manuscripts in legitimate ways, primarily purchasing manuscripts from book dealers, receiving books as gifts, and commissioning new copies of texts he left, including volumes missing from sets. And we have an Avicenna set here. I mean, one copy you will see, which is an 18th century copy, and he commissioned the missing books. So we have 3 other volumes from the mid-19th century commissioned by Hamilton. As you can see here, described by Dr. Benson. So all those three big stamps or seals in red, they are from the Royal Library. The second character in our story is the Lindsay family. So after Hamilton's death, his manuscripts were sold through the book. Manuscripts were bought by the British Museum, but the bulk of it, over 700, was bought by the Earl of Crawford. Focused on early English printed Bibles, then expanded to Bibles in multiple languages, and then texts of other religions. We actually have a room in this library called the Bible Room, where you have, I don't know, maybe 1,000 different Bibles in all sorts of languages printed. So Enriqueta's main aim was to create a public library and provide access to comprehensive knowledge for the people of Manchester. In particular, she targeted the non-conformist community who had been excluded from academia. In 1901, she bought the Crawford Library for £155,000, which is roughly £16 million in today's money, because of its comprehensive manuscript collection. It is telling that she funded 2 professorships at the University of Manchester, biblical criticism and comparative religion. So this library, the holdings were really well complemented or helped the teaching. So in a way, her collecting and the foundation of the library was very much connected to her faith.
Me to speak today and for giving me the opportunity to present these wonderful manuscripts. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in person, and I'm thankful to the organizers for making it possible for me to join remotely. Since Cameron and Rufi have already beautifully addressed the colonial and transmission context of these manuscripts, I would like to focus more on the content of 2 important Arabic astronomical manuscripts preserved at the John Rylands Library, and to reflect on what they can tell us about the history of astronomy, education, and the transmission of scientific knowledge. So, I would like to show that these manuscripts tell us a much larger story than the individual texts they contain. To appreciate the significance, we also first ask a simple question. Why did astronomy become such an important field of inquiry in the early Islamic world? The answer lies partly in everyday life. From the earliest stages of Islam, astronomical knowledge had important practical applications. It helped determine the times of the 5 daily prayers, among others, used for study and teaching over time. Together, these features show that manuscripts were much more than repositories of scientific knowledge. They were carefully designed pedagogical tools where text and image work together to make complex astronomical ideas more accessible and easier to learn. These manuscripts also tell a story of movement, not only of books, but also of people and ideas. Political changes across the Islamic world often encouraged scholars to migrate. The Mongol conquests, the rise and fall of dynasties, the changing patterns of patronage all shaped where scholars lived and worked. As they traveled, they carried their manuscripts, their methods of teaching, and their scientific traditions. Although he lived more than 2 centuries after At-Tusi, he was not merely repeating his predecessors' ideas. He was participating in a living intellectual tradition, engaging critically with At-Tusi, while also addressing the needs and questions of his own scholarly community. This manuscript, therefore, reminds us that scientific progress was not driven only by the creation of completely new books. It also emerged through the careful reading and continual refinement of existing works.
Again, imagery alongside wording to sort of, like the speaker said, to try and simplify it for other people. But how is it that we can sort of make sure we're on the right lines, like laymen? Like, how would we know that we are sort of depicting these texts and this image as was intended to be? Like, how do we know that we're actually reading and looking at what we want to look at, basically?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question, actually. So, we're dealing with a mathematical text, right? If someone gives you, say, they give you the proof of the Pythagorean theorem, right, for example, and it's only given to you in text form, they only describe it. She's asking, how do you know that where did the images come from, and how do we know that they're actually accompanying it correctly, right? From the, say, Pythagoras, for example, right? That was your question, right?
Yeah.
That's a fantastic question. So all I can say is that I've looked at the images of the Greek editions that did have accompanying images, right? And that were part of the Greek edited editions that are produced today, like modern editions. And I've compared them to the images that accompany the Arabic translations. And usually, but not always, you do see a correct correlation between the two images. So in many cases, it's pretty clear that the Arabic translators or the Arabic authors have actually copied the original diagrams, but not always. Sometimes there seems to be some disparity between the Greek image and the image that accompanies the Arabic text.
I'm here in the support of Donald because Razia couldn't come here today. So I understand how books are made and put together, but I can't use the Arabic camera. Quite a technical vocabulary.
Significant as
So this one is interesting because it's quite a modern book. So this was written in 1855. We know exactly the year when it was written, but it's probably written actually by the author. So it's about decimal fractions, and it's dedicated to George William Harrison. So the writer has dedicated it to his patron. He might well have paid him for this.
So it gave them like
so this book is on decimal fractions?
Yes.
Sorry, I missed the
Yeah.
beginning.
So I think that probably decimal fractions was quite a new thing at the time.
Yeah.
And possibly it didn't really take off. but decimals are definitely, I think that decimals are like zero associated with Islamic and Arabic maths history as a, so it includes like recensions or versions of Euclid's phenomena, which I think is at the beginning.
they don't raise the issue of the soul enough as like a real problem.
So you see these sort of labelled diagrams in it. You also see the work of bookworms, literal bookworms.
And so that by the end of the 6th century, it seems, you have this very strong Aristotelian way of thinking of the soul.
So this one I had open because you can see that there's been a sort of correction, but we don't know whether that's like a scribe correcting it or a scholar correcting it.
How do we preserve it?
So generally, so I was saying like, this book doesn't like being open. And
I've never read the music.
Cover.
That's the thing. I think the Arabic version
This
is
redone.
to be honest, it's a very specialist topic. I've not read this Kitab al-Mustafa.
And
Sorry, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never read it. So that's what this book covers.
so the collection has a
Sure. So here's so it seems that this may have been
So it doesn't seem to be used so much.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, there are.
I'm backwards. Yeah, sorry. It's from your perspective, not mine. So this is one of the books that seems that Hamilton got from possibly from not having commissioned it. So it says that this is the first volume in the upside down. Yeah, so this is the first volume of the general issues in the science of medicine, and then it says Colonel George William Hamilton, Sahib Bahadur. So like Sahib Bahadur, I don't know, it's like a Urdu phrase, right? It's like yeah, exactly. So this is his sort of like ex libris, right? He has it on all 4 volumes of the canon. But the other 3 volumes are somewhere downstairs, out of sight. Yeah. But this one has lots of marginal comments. The red rubrics, it seems to have been carefully collated by the people who read it.
Is there any illustrations?
There are no illustrations, I'm afraid, that I know of. I don't know if actually Ibn Sina included illustrations in his original. There might be one illustration, but I don't know what it was. I'd have to look at the actual entry.
Because it's amazingly precise.
You must have had a couple of
Yes, yes.
and also yes.
Yes, and this has the table of contents, which is possibly added by Hamilton. This is a Hamilton one as well. Was inserted upside down.
So binding has been changed.
Yes, so Hamilton usually rebound the volumes when he got them, and this is Hamilton's.
Otherwise, yeah, there's some.
Yes, it was added later. So you read it from here. That's why, because it's upside down. I see it's facing me, this side, and this facing you.
The center of the codices.
But I mean, they work by the same system. So they go from 0 up to 9 and start again. So rather than
It doesn't seem that they're really for a cadence.
This bookbinder is around. I'm sure. I don't know it. I have my own mushaf that I was quite attached to.
There's a brilliant binder on the repair shop.
Sorry?
That's the earlier version. Like you can just test it out.
That's just very fun. You see, they would use Japanese paper.